5. Okay.
I'm lazy.
Gotcha.
Hey everyone, this is Cardfight, bringing you another standard match. Today we're going to be continuing on with some more set 1 things. As you can see, we clearly have Rezael on the left side when he really should be replaced with his starting Vanguard. Of course, a Rezael there. Going to be going up against Drajeweled over here on the right. We of course do have Drajeweled going first, riding into the Jewel core there. And then we have a Biscotti being pitched here for the ride line in order to ride up into, not Rezael, but the grade 1. We're actually opting to use the grade 1 from the Alden ride line, which is something that some people do play around with. I mean, I do kind of have to admit that Rezael's grade 1 is not really the greatest. Like, it's an okay attacker. Like, it hits 10k once you're on Rezael, but honestly, like, it's not that great. I mean, this one at least gives you an advantage. It does take a little bit more work on your part, because you do need to have those 3 cards with different grades, which isn't like the hardest. It's just like a trigger than like maybe 2 other grades, like in Persona Ride or whatever. But anyways, we see Drajeweled coming on down here, playing that Horde/Draco kit, which is something that a lot of Drajeweld players try to play, but I don't really think it's been that successful. Personally, just like I don't really think that card is very good, just because it is just, I mean, like, I will say this about it, like, if you don't see grade 4 Drajeweled, you are kind of in a very bad situation, because you're kind of just playing a set 7 deck at that point, but at the same time, like, you're kind of wasting a CB, and the deck isn't like super heavy on CB in like any sense of the word, I guess. But you don't really have access to any counter charge, so just being able to use all your CB like efficiently is kind of important for the deck. So we do see a little bit of an aggressive push here, swinging the 8k, not hitting a single defensive there, just a Persona Ride going into the damage zone. We've got the Jewel Neil Swede in at the Vanguard. It does have that on hit, and without the boost, it's going to be easy to kind of just one card, throw down that 50k shield and prevent it from hitting. But we do see a a critical trigger being flipped there, making this Jewel core up to 33, which is going to be calling for a lot of shield value here. That's like at least 2 15k cards, and it is 2 damage, so it's like you're kind of under pressure to guard it, but at the same time, it's honestly probably just fine to take this. I mean, you're Rezael, you do kind of want to have a decent amount of damage, so it looks like we are just going to opt to take it, losing another Persona Ride to the damage zone there. A little unfortunate, but you know, that is kind of how the game works. But you know, it's not really going to be the end of the world. Not guarding that did allow us to preserve quite a few cards, and of course, you know, Drajeweled did come in 2 cards from hand that turn, using one of their counterblasts, and you know, just getting, I guess, a 1-for-1, I guess, from hand. Anyways, we are seeing the Tranquilla being used here, revealing the counter charger for Rezael as a grade 1. I can see a heal trigger in there. We have the grade 2 order card. I believe all it really asks you to reveal is cards with different grades, not necessarily units, so that's why we're going to be able to just reveal that grade 2 as well as that draw trigger. Checking the top 5 is going to allow us to call a counter charger. So I guess it is another bad thing about the Alden ride line, that it is technically possible to whiff off that top 5, because you can only grab a grade 1, and there you do definitely play like a decent amount. You got the cell gowns, you got the counter chargers, but there is still a fair amount of chance that you can actually whiff on it. So like I said, it's like there's ups and downs to playing each one. It's kind of honestly just like the player preference at this point. So let's see, Rezael might not be calling anything else. Usually you don't really need to, especially since Rezael is kind of locked behind, you know, being on a Rezael Vanguard. But one thing, which is, you know, the typical grade 2 Rezael play here, which is going to be that Wisdom, calling out 2 cards. We've definitely got plenty of CB here, one of which being that Cabre, as well as a second copy of the counter charger. Going to be using the Cabre skill to counterblast 1, soul blast 1, and then just check the top 3 cards. Either add a grade 3, which is going to be that Persona Ride, so our last Persona Ride in deck is going to be added to our hand. And of course, we could have called a grade 2 to, like, you know, increase our board presence, but honestly, just having like 2 full columns is perfectly fine. It just makes those numbers a little bit harder to guard. But unfortunately, they are just 8Ks right now because they become 13 once you're on Rezael, and obviously you don't get there until turn 3. So looks like probably just gonna be swinging. I assume we're probably just gonna take the Vanguard and then maybe just like guard the Cabre with the 15k, assuming they don't get a heal trigger. But we do see a draw trigger there, giving the power to the Cabre. But we of course counter with our own front trigger, meaning that this Cabre still can be blocked with just a 15k guard, which we are just gonna go ahead and commit. Maybe not the best play there, just because, let's see, well, I guess you don't really need too much. No, I think you honestly should have just taken that, because I was gonna say I don't know what you're using CB on this turn, but I just remembered, one, you want to use 1 CB on Drajeweled, of course, and then of course you do actually want to probably be able to call out the what's it called? I don't know why Distarve is coming to my mind. I don't think that's what it's called. The Stride Fodder Dragon, that also costs Counterblast, and that's something that you'd prefer to, you know, actually use this turn. But with only 1 CB, you're gonna have to choose between one or the other. And looks like it is going to be the Drajewel. Thankfully, we don't actually whiff on that Soul Charge, so we are going to be able to draw a card. But if we do have a Stride Fodder Dragon here, or like a Forbid All would be pretty insane. We're not actually going to be able to, you know, use its skill because we don't have that CB. But instead we are calling the grade 3 Cycle, which is going to allow for a decent amount of board control. It's definitely a card, which is, I wouldn't say is like terrible, but I feel like Drajewel doesn't really have that much space, and especially if you're playing the Searcher, it kind of makes me question, like, what did you take out of the deck to fit those cards in? Anyways, we have the Varpula boosting the Rakugor here, of course, and only going to be an 18k because, you know, the opponent is not at grade 3 yet. Swinging in the Drajeweled, Soul Blasting the 4 different grades, going to be that Ride line as well as a grade 4 in order to reduce the power to 1. Of course, we don't actually get, you know, the crit, but we can use Varpula to restand the Rakugor here. Honestly, I think maybe we should have done it the other way, where we restood the Distarve Dragon, because we could have just called an alternate column, just because Distarve is going to be hitting over defensive, or Rakugor is not going to be hitting over defensive, since he doesn't get his extra 10k yet. So I guess small little plays like that do kind of matter. Let's see, could we have done that like any better? Because we couldn't have used the is it actually Distarve Dragon? I don't know. The grade 3 Cycle card there. If we wanted to use it to do board control, then we probably couldn't have used Varpula too effectively, but, you know, what do I know? I'm not a Drajewel player. I also don't think you should be playing some of these cards, but once again, what do I know? I'm not really a Drajewel player. So I guess we're kind of just thinking on whether we want to guard this Drajeweled swing. It is a little bit risky. Like, if they flip over a crit here, you could straight just go to 5, which is kind of unfortunate. Like, that's not really where you want to be, especially when you're staring down a grade 4 Drajeweled on the next turn. But, you know, even guarding this is still a decent amount, because, like, you throw down 115, that's a 1 to pass. So if you throw down like 25, then you can get a nice 2 to pass there. We still got these other 2 swings, which are, you know, 10k, and if we use that skill, it's gonna be 18 or 21, sure, like effectively the same number. Well, not really, honestly, because like 21 actually calls for, what is that, 20k? No, that's 25k shield, whereas 18 just calls for 20. So it's like a difference of 5k. So looks like we're going to be going for that 25k shield there for that 2 to pass, but we're going to see nothing off of the drive check. 2 non-shield cards, 2 no-shield cards, I guess I should say. As we're seeing in the Rakugor, it's just going to be a pretty easy 10k block. If we have another draw trigger, just commit it, or maybe even just like a 5k plus that Cabre. But, you know, alternatively, you can always just go like 15k, super easy to guard that. And then we could probably even just take this last swing here. It's not really that impactful. So I'm going to be swinging in, putting that unit into the soul, retiring the counter charger. Oh, his name's Crucial Dragon. Huh, what do you know? Anyways, I'm going to be retiring the counter charger, but, you know, that doesn't really mean much, because if you've seen what the grade 2 does, which we're about to see right here, honestly, just like retiring against Rezael doesn't really accomplish very much. Just because I mean, like, it accomplishes a little bit because you're reducing their forces. They have to use their skills to actually like call back a board. But as we're going to see here, discarding a crit trigger, riding into the Rezael, using the grade 2 skill in order to choose a grade 1 or grade 2 or less, excuse me, and calling it back. Looks like we're just calling back that countercharger that we retired during the last turn. Oh, looks like we're going to opt to not do that, or we're going to try the order. I don't know what's happening there, but looks like we are just calling back the countercharger. So you know, souling in your little guy there didn't really accomplish much, but you know, at the same time, it doesn't really matter because Rezael just took it. It looks like we are going to be proccing the divine skill here right away. I guess it does make sense. You're at 4, you're going to be staring down a grade 4 turn. You kind of do want to have, you know, as much assurance as possible. And having Rezael's divine skill active is just that little bit of, you know, reassurance that it can happen, that you have a little bit better chance of actually living. So, yeah. Anyways, so shuffling back all those crits. How many was that? I think it was like 3 or 4. So, you know, you've also got triple drive here, so you got a lot of power going. I think if you're Drajeweled here, your kind of plan is to take at least 2 damage. So because you do need 1 damage for Rockagore, and assuming you do get the Stride Fodder Dragon, which you have the Forbid all, so you might as well call it out. So honestly, I think you just take like 2 damage here. So I think like the guard pattern is probably like you guard this Cabre because that's an easy 15k block, is only 23 right now, and then you probably just take the Vanguard and hope they get a crit. If they don't get a crit, then you just like take another rearguard swing, so it's not that bad. Calling down a Topaz here, that little cat, gonna be putting, of course, the ride deck cards back into the ride deck, checking the top 5 cards of the deck, and then calling something out. Let's see, Selgown, is that a Sagas? And then a Wisdom, and a Turnar there, which is, man, Turnar as a card kind of just frustrates me. It's so close to being good, but it's just not. Honestly, if Turnar just said, like, if it didn't have the text 3 or more face down, the card would actually be pretty decent. Like, it wouldn't even be broken because, like, you're losing a card on board in order to gain 2 resources. But, you know, she's just so disappointing. Anyways, looks like we're going to be going for the tried, the true, the Selgown. Putting the cat in front of the dog, you know, as the saying goes. That's not actually a saying. Don't look that up. This is not real. Anyways, with more rearguards than our opponent, we are obviously going to be able to use that Selgown. And then, obviously, we can even just call it off of the Rezael, because the Rezael is very good at just abusing this fucking dog here, and just, you know, making it do whatever it wants. And we do still have a nice 21k column, which is, it's still calling for a 10k guard. I guess, like, well, if it were 16, it would be calling for 5k guard. So, what do you know? Good cards are good. So, yeah, I think we just block this attack because it's just a really easy, simple attack to block there. Of course, going to be using the Selgown, just adding the card to hand. And then, of course, it can just be called again off of the Rezael if we want to. We have 4 damage, so, you know, it's pretty easy. I'm going to be swinging for the 26 here, using the Rezael skill to reborn 2 cards. Probably going to be reborning that Selgown, yeah, and then some grade 2 or 3. Just reviving the Biscotti. You can't use its skill, but, you know, it is a grade 2. It's just another attacker. I think here we probably just take this Vanguard swing. If they get a crit, whatever, you need 2 damage. Makes columns a little bit awkward, but both of these other columns are just 23k, so there's just like 15k blocks each, so it's not that big of a deal. But looks like we're actually committing cards to guard this Rezael. Like, I know it's triple drive, but, well, honestly, it's triple drive. Why are we hard guarding this? Maybe that's I just saying that because the last 2 times I faced up against a Rezael deck, I got triple triggered on when I 2 to pass them, so it feels a little bit bad when that happens. But I feel like you just take it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You need the damage. Like, you might as well keep those triggers for the other 2 columns because they're both just 23 right now. which maybe is that's what we're calculating. But it looks like we're actually committing the PG, discarding a grade 4 Drajeweled there. We see a draw trigger, giving the power to, it really doesn't matter, they're both the same number. The Biscotti there. Second check's gonna be another trigger, a critical trigger. Of course, we could just stack everything on the Biscotti there, but it might be a little more efficient to split the power, because I feel like they're gonna try and either take the 2 crit or they're gonna try and guard the 2 crit. Theoretically, if you give it to Biscotti, that makes 43, which is still a magic number, because it's gonna call for 3 cards. And last check's gonna be a PG there. So we did actually end up splitting the power, so we got 2 33k columns here. I think what you do here is you probably just guard this Biscotti and then just take the Cabre. It is a little bit risky because like maybe they don't attack into your Vanguard or they damage deny you, which is definitely totally a valid strategy. But I mean, Rezael is pretty far behind in tempo right now, so they can't really afford to not be dealing damage. So you're kind of secure in them actually attacking face. But yeah, it looks like we did instead decide to just take the Biscotti, which I don't really think is that good. I think we would just take the Cabre. It's the same amount of guard. Like, yeah, you have a chance of getting a defensive here, and then maybe you can block this. But like I said, you want 2 CB. I will say that another thing, you would have had 2 CB if you hadn't used that one grade 1 there. Honestly, I think you're still fine to take this attack. Like, you go to 5, you're denying heal triggers, and if you plan to kill next turn, that's still a good, you can Drajeweled is a deck that can totally kill on turn 4. So honestly, maybe even just taking that attack wouldn't have been a bad idea. But instead, we're stuck here with 1 CB, which is going to make things super awkward because, one, you can't go double Rocky Gore. You can't go double Rocky Gore. But you also can't, if you're using this for Bidall, if you call out the Stride Fodder Dragon, you just can't use its skill, or you can't use Rocky Gore. But anyways, we do see the Stride Fodder Dragon coming out here. The grade 4, of course, once again, be added to the hand. And then, like, I guess we do have to decide here. Are we going to put 2 cards into Soul and draw a card because we need to, shape the Soul, which I don't know quite what's in Soul right now. We did Soul Blast 4 during the last turn. We haven't really seen any, what is it? It's not far. It's Zogons. We haven't seen any Zogons or any, like, Soul Charging. So I'm not sure what we need in the Soul, but it's totally possible that we can get that just by using Drajeweld's skill here. I can't really tell there. But looks like we are going to be using that skill, kind of just debating on it. Once again, I'm not a Drajeweld player. I don't know if you should be using that skill. I mean, it is a little bit of a waste, but looks like we are just going to be using it to choose 2 cards, draw a card, put them into the Soul. Let's see, what do we have there? It's like great. I see a Rakugor, and I see definitely like the Drajeweld. Did we need to do that? I feel like we probably did not need to do that. I mean, we could have just done that to like give fodder to the Crucial Dragon there. It looks like we're deciding on what else we want to call. And another copy of that grade 1 and a Varpula. So without another CB, this is looking a heck of a lot like 4 attacks. I think that legitimately, if you had access to 5 attacks here, you probably could have just finished things. But I mean, we technically don't know the Rezael player's hand. We know they have like 1 PG, but we do know they're at 4 damage, and things aren't looking too great for them. So maybe you should have just gone for the kill there and gone to 5, kept all that shield. Even if you didn't kill them here, you probably could have destroyed their hand to a point where it would have been pretty decently hard for them to like mount a counterattack. But then again, at the same time, like, it's Rezael. And obviously, there's still a lot of cards in hand, mostly because of that Selga. I'm just like adding cards to hand. Anyways, this first attack's gonna be swinging for 43, so pretty decently big number there. Let's see, I'm trying to remember what I said in my How to Beat Drajeweled video. I think honestly you just guard this. It's a little bit awkward. I think you can throw down like 2 15Ks and then just like an intercept to guard it, especially since you know that you're only staring down 3 attacks here. I think you would rather save like any potential defensives until after you end up like going down to 0, so that leaves at 10, makes things a little bit more guardable. And since the Drajeweled is probably going to be a thing swinging next, you can easily just like guard this. Like, yeah, you're giving up 3 cards, which is a little neg. But, you know, you have that PG for the Drajeweled. You can take 1 more damage. Assuming they only get like 1 critical trigger, you can just take the one that doesn't have a crit and then just commit all of your cards to, you know, guard the other one to make sure you don't just instantly die here. But that's honestly what I'm looking at. Looks like we're going to be taking this one, which is, I will say it's a choice all on its own. Like, there isn't a correct choice against Drajeweled. If you watch that How to Beat Drajeweled video, you'll know that like the difference between like guarding before and after is there's like pros and cons to each one. But now we're at 5. We do have to guard every single attack from here on out, and our power is at 0, and it's going to be staying at 0 for this turn. So we're going to need enough shield value to guard everything. So this Vanguard swinging for only 36, but it is at the 0k Vanguard. So did I really just say 0k? Anyways, of course, you're going to be PGing that Drajeweled there. Kind of just deciding what we want to discard here. Looks like we're going to be discarding that Tayfault there. We did lose the back row, which is kind of annoying, but it's not really the end of the world. Drajeweled seeing absolutely nothing off of that drive check. Another Rakugor and a PG, so that might be relevant as we use the Crucial Dragon to give itself another 5k and retire another Vanguard. It doesn't really matter what we retire. Both of these, like, neither of these cards can do anything now. So just going to be discarding, or deleting? I don't know. No. Killing the Biscotti. Although I guess it does matter a little bit because whatever ends up in the drop zone can be called back off of Rezael. But if they're just going to intercept anyway, it's not really going to matter anyway. So we're at 10k here against 33. And then adding another 15 would make it 25, which is a little bit short, if you guys are realizing. But don't worry, I have seen this video, so they are going to go back and fix those numbers because, you know, sometimes you forget that you're at 0 power as we swing that 35 and we guard for 25, which normally would be enough, but obviously it's not. So adding another 15k there is going to make it into 40, which is going to be enough to block the attack. And then, of course, like I said, here we're going to go back and just, you know, redo that last guard because it does require like 10k shield more. So we did call the Biscotti from hand, and we did draw, so that is a little bit of an irreparable game state there. So we do have to. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to commit the Biscotti, but we do have to decide like what other cards we're going to be committing in order to guard. Of course, we can't take back the intercept and the critical trigger in order to just, you know, make it so that you choose what you want to guard with from hand. But we're just going to be committing a little bit of PG here to guard the attack, and then just discarding that critical trigger there. And then, of course, the other cards that we guarded with last time. The 30k plus, we would need another 10k, so we're just going to guard with the same amount for 40, which is going to be guarding that Rakugor's attack there. So Rezael kind of running low on cards, but we still have a decent amount. We've got the Persona Ride that we managed to search off the Cabre last turn, so just going to be going ahead and doing that. Board's looking a little low here, so we're going to be calling the Nobia to check those top 3 cards of the deck. Probably fishing for maybe like a grade 1, probably some boosters are what we're looking for right now. I think that would probably just be like the most efficient, just because you do, even though you are under Persona Ride, you do want to be having like good numbers. And it looks like we didn't really find any of that, so we're thinking about calling the Tayfault over the Cabre, which definitely makes sense because she is a little bit of a stronger attacker. But it looks like instead we're going to be calling out the Nobia, which is technically also a 20k attacker, but it is going to be costing you soul. And instead we're going to opt to use the second Nobia to kind of just fish even deeper. But if you saw that top 3, that is a very unfortunate top 3. It was a crit, a heal, and a PG. And I think you do kind of need to call the boosters, like you just want to hit numbers. This is theoretically might even be your last turn, but it looks like we're going to go ahead and CB for nothing, which is a little unfortunate. Hopefully you have the counter charge. I mean, you probably wouldn't have done that if you didn't have the counter charge, and we see it right there, as well as Cell Gown. So Cell Gown is probably going to help us at least, you know, recover a little bit of our resources, so it's not going to be the end of the world. Swinging in this first Nobia, going to be proccing its skill, giving itself another 10k power there. So just swinging at 20 plus the Cell Gown boost, and of course Persona is going to be pushing it all the way up to 43. So definitely a very powerful attack, but Drajeweled is still here at 3 damage because we didn't take you know, any of the 2 crit damage from last turn. Use the Cell Gown to bulk up a little bit, adding 1 card to hand in exchange for that 1 card on board. So gonna go ahead and swing with a Rezael. I'm probably gonna be calling on yet another Cell Gown, you know, the tried and true. Gonna have to discard a card here in order to counter charge and then counterblast once again. That does give our attack a little bit more oomph, pushing it up to that 38. So it's not like terrible, but looks like we do have to decide, like, we could theoretically call grade 3 here, but I don't know if we really have any in our drop zone right now, so we're probably just going to end up calling like another grade 2, and looks like I'm going to be right with that Biscotti, which now that we have Persona Ride, we can actually use her skill to kind of just stack the top of the deck in order to, you know, guarantee triggers. Drajeweled is, I think Drajeweld's probably pretty fine here. We still do have that PG. We're probably just going to hit the PG to this Vanguard swing. The Nobia is swinging for just 30 without any triggers. The Biscotti there is going to be swinging for only 33, so these numbers aren't that scary. It's just going to be like each of them are like 2 card guards, so it's a little bit scary, and you know, you're still at 4, so you can take 1 more damage, and you know, having 2 CB, kind of a good thing in Drajeweled, I hear. Anyways, I think we're just kind of deciding. I guess we didn't want to call the Biscotti here, but it looks like we're going to, you know, call the Biscotti, change our mind, and then just call the Biscotti anyway. I guess the other option there would have been like to call the Turnar in order to, you know, actually like counter charge, but I feel like a lot more offensive pressure is kind of warranted here, as we do use the Biscotti to choose 1 card from the top 3, put it on the top, and the rest go to the bot. So just like kind of guarantee a trigger. Not necessarily guarantee, but you know, increase the chances of you hitting a trigger. And it looks like it was a pretty good one, that being an over trigger on top. Going to be giving all the effects that Nobia there. So we're going to need a second PG in order to live this turn, because that is going to be a 2 crit attack. Adding a PG back to the hand there. Of course, you're drawing a card off of the overture, and we've still got 1 more check here, and it's going to be just a Cabre. So we are going to need a PG in order to actually live here now, just because, you know, that Nobia is at 100 million, and you cannot get up to 100 million without a PG. Of course, not actually using Nobia's skill, because why would you? Looks like we're going to do a little bit of desperation play, calling the Energy Cycler, drawing a card, but unfortunately, it looks like it is not going to happen, as we take 2 damage and lose there. Anyways, that's going to be the end of the match. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do those things, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.